Hello and welcome to episode 134 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we set up the Tier 3 Nanoforge and PCB factory, craft the first Pico Circuits and UIV field gens, and also set up the first Dyson Swarm ground unit on Horus. Eternal coils will also be done in the near future, but not today. I realized it's a bit wiser for me to invest in the PCB and Nanoforge upgrades, because if I do that, making circuit boards becomes a bit cheaper, and ultimately that will make the Eternal coils a little bit cheaper as well, and at this point, I will take what I can get. I gotta fill the time somehow, still waiting for the space-time, so to make the Tier 3 Nanoforge, all I need to do is make transcendent metal nanites. This is very simple. It's just 8 blocks of transcendent metal with some ASOX, UU matter, and an energized tesseract. That's pretty straightforward. To build a structure, I'm also going to need some radiant Naquata alloy casings, stellar alloy frame boxes, and assembly line casings. Specifically, I need 228 radiant casings, 84 stellar boxes, and 16 assembly casings. Cool. Tier 3 Nanoforge, which means I can make gold nanites. These are also quite simple. Just needs gold blocks, dilithium lens, SOCs, and UU matter. Oh, I never mentioned about the dilithium lens, or maybe I did. But I did make one for the grade 6 water, so making another one should be no problem at all. Besides that, I need radiation-proof photolithographic framework casings, which sound so similar to a previous tier that I was surprised that this is something new. But I need celestial tungsten frame boxes and quantum plates. And also some more radiant Naquata alloy casings. However, the Tier 3 PCB factory looks very different to this. So if I set the tier here to 3 and right click, it looks like a completely different structure. So I think it fits in the same sort of footprint here. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'll figure it out. Nice, PCB tier 3. And now that I have crafting input buffers, I was able to get rid of that whole subnet I had set up. Instead, I just have a crafting input buffer, inside of which I'm going to put my gold nanites. And this is linked to the other one as well. So this is basically infinitely parallelizable now, which is great, because I'm sure I'm going to need to do that. And yeah, now it works. I did have to shift everything up by a block, which was a bit annoying, but it is what it is. And wiring it up is a little ugly because all the inputs and outputs can only go on the bottom layer, and they can only go kind of in this area. But of course, I am still setting my trace size to 50, and now this is done. Now, Pico Circuits. Pico Circuits are the first UMV circuit, so it's one above the optical mainframe, and the recipe is mostly straightforward. It's just a bunch of pretty relatively common materials, and also 2 optical mainframes and 4 Pico wafers. And Pico wafers we have seen before. It's kind of a niche thing, at least until now. I haven't used these very often, but here it is. And these Pico circuits are used in a couple of things. So first of all, UIV field generators. Each one is going to need 4 Pico circuits, which is quite expensive, and also 4 emitters. But I do have the component assembly line now, which makes it a bit cheaper, 25% cheaper. But it also means I need to make a stack at a time, at least. And I'm probably going to be making 2 stacks at a time. So if I just need 1 field gen, this is going to hurt. But at least I'll have extras. The other thing is the Dyson Swarm ground unit. This is what I'm actually after today. Let's see if I can actually get to this. But first, I'm going to make some UMV circuits and some UIV field gens. Now the UIV field gens, I can't really make these at the moment. Not for any reason beyond not being able to afford it. And the only reason I'm not able to afford it is because I'm making 2 stacks at a time. And I've decided I kind of want to be stubborn about this for no reason at all. So I guess it's going to wait. Unless I need it for Dysons, then I'll just do it in here. But for now, I'm just going to wait on the UIV field gens. Now, Dyson Swarm ground unit. There are quite a few new blocks here. I'm going to go through them all and see if there's anything new So the Dyson Swarm Energy Receiver Base Casing. It needs UHV Energy Distributors, which is a block I did not know existed until just now. What is this? What does this do? I don't know, but it's used for this. The Dyson Swarm Energy Receiver Dish block. This needs the Tier 2 Naquata Fuel Refinery coils. So that's interesting. But besides that, nothing new. The Dyson Swarm Module Deployment Unit Base Casing. Quantum Chest 5, Quantum Tank 5, UIV Machine Hull. Quite a few UMV circuits are going to go into this, I think. Dyson Swarm Module Deployment Unit Core. A lot of droppers. That's funny. This is a funny recipe, but it's pretty chill. Dyson Swarm Module Deployment Unit Superconducting Magnet. A lot of UMV circuits. Oof, this is going to hurt. And the scan is a UEV polarizer. It's funny that I need to make this at all. Dyson Swarm Control Center Base Casing. It needs quantum computers for the casings. That's cool. And also the APUs, which are made in a diode crafting table. Dyson Swarm Control Center Primary Windings. Just a ton of mica insulator, basically. Dyson Swarm Control Center Secondary Windings. Even more mica. Dyson Swarm Control Center Toroid Casing. This is probably the cheapest of everything so far. Ultra high strength concrete floor. We've seen this before from the space elevator. Awakened Drac coil blocks. Hermetic casing 10. This is cheap. Some frame boxes. And the controller itself. The scan for a controller is a photonic solar panel, which I've never seen before. And this needs the UV solar panel to craft. Which means I need to do the whole... I have to build up to a UV solar panel. Alrighty. Fun. That's going to be a lot of quest completes. And I also need Magical Memory Creative. And Magical Memory needs the extremely primordial pearl. So time for some Thaumcraft, time for some solar panel progression. The saving grace here is that I'm going to get a bunch of quest completes, which is going to be very satisfying. So let's get started. Here's something interesting. So I'm starting to struggle for Infinity Catalyst. And I've been space mining it, which is great and all. But look at this, right? The minimum computation is 320 per second. I get 8 parallels because I'm using a Mark III space mining module, which means I need 8 times 320 computation per second, per miner, basically. I am in total generating less than that, and I'm splitting it between 6 different space miners. So I am not using as many parallels as I can. This is such a hidden and secret bottleneck I've just discovered. Well, time to make this quantum computer a bit bigger. Alright, all that's left for the Dyson is to get an extremely primordial pearl. And I only need 1, because it's not consumed in the extreme crafting recipe. It doesn't say NC here, but it is indeed not consumed. And I know that because when you try to shift click the pattern for the magical memory into AE2, it doesn't include the pearl, which means it's not consumed. So I only need 1. However, making 1 requires a total of 8 primordial pearls, and I only have 1. There is a duplication recipe, this one. It's pretty hideous, but I've done the research, and this shouldn't be too bad. It takes an inert pearl fragment to get started, and I can get this by forge hammering my pearl. So I'm going to get that done, and then the Dyson will be ready. Almost. You'll see. Ugh. Nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Huh. Actually, kind of strangely, when you shift click the magical memory recipe, it actually doesn't put in the APUs and the flux to electrum wire. I don't know why. And I assumed it was excluding the extremely primordial pearl because it's not consumed. But that may not have been true. However, it indeed does not consume the extremely primordial pearl. So I got a bit lucky there. But here it is. Now, a couple things about the Dyson. First of all, we need Dyson Swarm modules, which I haven't made yet. Dyson Swarm modules are relatively easy to make. It does need drone case tier 3s, which is also the scan item. And these are also pretty easy to make. They need biome compasses, which I've never seen or made before. And they need endium, which is slightly hard to get. It's a little annoying, but it's doable. I can space mine it, for example, but it's quite rare. And luckily I don't need much, but it's still, not a big fan. I probably have some, but if I do need to mass produce this, it's going to be a little challenging. I can centrifuge end powder and ender goo, and that gives me a chance at endium dust. And ender goo can be space pumped, so I guess it's not really that hard to get, it's just slightly annoying. This needs the microcontroller case tier 3, which is this weird recipe. Mostly alright. The radioisotope thermoelectric generator is easy to make. It's like an IC2 machine, so yeah. And also pellets of RTG fuel. These are also ancient content. This is probably older than GTNH itself. Also pretty easy to get. It needs IC2 plutonium specifically, but this is just compressed plutonium-239, so easy. These Dyson Swarm modules are destroyed over time. So there's a bit of math to do, as you can see in the formula below. The number of Dyson Swarm modules that are destroyed per second depends on the amount of computation I provide to the Dyson, which means I'm going to need quantum computers. And finally, it also requires 3.6 million liters of gelid cryothium per hour, luckily. Per hour, that's fine. That's basically 1,000 per second. That's okay. So I'm going to try and figure out how many Dyson Swarm modules I need. But looking at this function, it seems there's not going to be a minimum for this. So I think it's just the more computation, the better type of thing. But it's never going to be 0 Dyson Swarm modules that are lost. I'm sure the wiki has a nice number that I can use. And also, I will not be setting this thing up in the overworld, because there is one objective correct place to put these, and that is Horus, since you get 337% of the power you would normally get for no additional input. It's just free power. So always set up your Dysons on Horus. That's another small additional complication, that I need to get materials to and from Horus automatically. But quantum ring should be pretty easy. And this has also made me realize that because I'm going to have my quantum computers over there, I need to not ever have uncertainty problems. Which means I need to do the UIV field gens quest because I'm going to need uncertainty resolutions. I don't have access to cloud computation yet, so I won't be able to set up the computers here and then cloud compute. So another few hours, days, weeks of waiting. And I'll have my 2 stacks of field generators, and then I can use one of them, or more, depending on how many quantum computers I need, to make the uncertainty resolutions. And a few final notes on the things I need here. The machine will explode if the dynamo buffer is full, and it's going to make 337 billion EU per tick at most. So I need to use a laser source hatch that is going to be able to handle this amount of EU, and that's going to be at least a UIV 16,384 amp laser source hatch. This can do 549 billion EU per tick. And that's going to go into a local LSC. And that LSC is going to have an ultimate capacitor so that I can just upload the energy directly into my wireless network. And that buffer will never fill, so the dynamo will never fill, so the machine will never explode. While the field generators craft, I found that I actually need something from the Twilight Forest. So to make the Dyson Swarm modules, I need steel leaf dust and night metal dust. And both of these are obtained from macerating like armor that you get from mobs in the Twilight Forest. And it seems the only mob that drops both steel leaf and nightly armor is the Snow Guardian. So I'm going to head to the Twilight Forest and try to find one, set up an EEC and a macerator, and I'm probably going to avoid everything else because everything else is kind of garbage, except for the steel leaf and the nightly. Kind of weird that I need this for Dysons, but alright. I still have a lot of waiting for these field gens to do, but it's nearly done. 14 hours of crafting so far. Partially because I was doing other crafts along the way, but this is still going. Now, Snow Guardians, I believe, spawn in here. This thing was hard to find for some reason. I've only seen this one guy. And he's wearing steel leaf. I'm kind of scared that it's not going to drop night metal because this guy's only wearing steel leaf. Maybe I'll keep looking for a bit, but I've been looking for a while. After quite a bit more searching, I decided to just go home and test it. And it turns out it doesn't matter what the Snow Guardian is wearing. It will always make all varieties of drops. That's a bit lucky. The setup is a little weird though. So I have an advanced stocking input bus pulling all the drops, and I also have a void cell with a fuzzy filter because the Arctic hood and jacket can't be macerated, so they just need to be voided, along with snowballs, rat shards, greed shards, and red hearts. As part of maceration, I'm also going to get some ironwood dust and small piles of wood pulp, both of which I'm just going to void. And here I'm storing night metal dust and steel leaf dust. It's pretty slow to build up these two things, but I don't need much per hour, so this should be fine. Now I can make these Dyson Swarm modules no problem. They are a bit pricey, of course, but I only need about 64 an hour, assuming I'm able to provide the maximum computation, which is 100,000 computation per second. And I should be able to do that, no problem. Now all that's left is for me to gather everything up, and then I will see you on Horus. Very cool multi. It consists of 3 parts. This one is kind of the computation station. This is where all the computation goes. This one is the drone launcher, sort of. So this is where the input hatch and input bus go. And finally, this is the energy receiver. So this is where the energy comes out. Now it doesn't rain on Horus, but there are meteorites. So I need to build like a glass ceiling or something to protect this. I also need to set up the quantum computer and the LSC. So I will be right back. Dyson is going. Let me run through my setup here. Centrally, I have an LSC. This is where the power goes, and also where the power comes from. So this power, this dynamo hatch, leads to the quantum computer. It's being supplied with 1 amp of UIV, which is what I need. Well, specifically I need about 47 amps of UV, but 1 amp of UIV is 64, so I just made a single UIV energy hatch. This quantum computer has overclock set to 2.84, overvolt set to 2.61. This results in computation over 100,000, which is what I need. And in the racks, every single rack basically has 2 Pico Circuits and 2 cooling cores. This is a max length quantum computer, and I'm basically going to need 1 for each Dyson I set up. The Pico Circuits are kind of painful. Anyway, the way the Dyson works is it basically starts an hour-long recipe, and it uses the gelid cryothium that's in the input hatch and the Dyson Swarm modules that are in the input bus, along with the computation that's being provided to figure out how many Dyson Swarm modules to destroy over the next hour. And then for the next hour, it outputs a certain amount of EU per tick. And in my case, that is 337 billion EU per tick. And you can see, I am indeed just about getting that much. This is a massive upgrade. This one Dyson is about 3 times what I made before. Well, more like 2.5, but yeah. I've also started the Eternal Coil block craft, and I am going to go home and overclock the shit out of my DTPFs. I'm getting these Eternal Coils. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will hopefully finish crafting the first set of Eternal Coils. What a monumental task. We will also, against my better judgment, invest in Draconic Fusion crafting, which means I need to finish off Botania and defeat the Gaia Guardian. See you next time.